The quantum arrays aboard the UES Horizon hummed their familiar song as Dr. Elena Santos stared at the readings before her. 20 years of deep space research had taught her to trust her instincts, and something about this signal was different. It didn't match any known patterns in the database, yet it carried the unmistakable hallmarks of intelligence. "Captain Mitchell," she called over the comm, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I think you need to see this." Captain Sarah Mitchell arrived at the research deck within minutes, her weathered face reflecting the blue glow of the holographic displays. The Horizon was technically a research vessel, but like all human ships that ventured this far from Earth, it carried enough firepower to level a small continent. Humanity had learned early that the galaxy rarely rewarded the unprepared. "What have you found, Doctor?" Mitchell asked, studying the quantum fluctuations dancing across the screen. "It's a distress signal, but unlike anything we've encountered. The complexity suggests a civilization at least 2 centuries ahead of us technologically, but there's something desperate about it, almost primitive in its urgency." Mitchell frowned. The Horizon was 3 months from the nearest human outpost, deep in what their star charts labeled as unexplored space. Standing orders were clear: observe, document, but don't interfere. Yet something about this signal tugged at the edges of her consciousness. "Can you locate the source?" Elena's fingers flew across the haptic interface. "Already did. It's coming from a star system about 4 days away at maximum burn. The signal's been repeating for approximately 3 weeks, growing weaker with each cycle." The bridge crew gathered around as Elena decoded more of the transmission. The message slowly took shape: a civilization called the Aetherians, pleading for help against an aggressive species known as the Drachnid Empire. The Aetherians' message painted a grim picture. Their worlds were being systematically stripped of resources, their people either enslaved or eliminated. "The Drachnids claim our worlds have no right to exist if we cannot defend them." The translation read, "We are a peaceful species. We have no weapons, no armies. Please, if anyone receives this, help us." Captain Mitchell stood in silence, weighing the implications. The Horizon wasn't a warship, despite its armaments. They were scientists, explorers. But they were also human, and humanity had its own bitter memories of standing by while others suffered. "Dr. Santos, what do we know about these species?" Mitchell asked, her mind already running through scenarios. Elena pulled up the preliminary analysis. The Aetherians appear to be an ancient civilization, possibly type II on the Kardashev scale. Their technology focuses on energy manipulation and quantum engineering. But their philosophy seems to have evolved beyond conflict. They literally don't understand the concept of warfare anymore. And the Drachnids, less advanced overall, but heavily militarized. They're an expanding empire that targets peaceful worlds, stripping them of resources, and moving on. Their biology suggests they evolved on a low-gravity world, heavy exoskeletons, multiple limbs. They've never encountered significant resistance. Mitchell smiled grimly. Then they've never met humans before. The decision crystallized in her mind. She opened a channel to the engine room. "Chief Jung, how quickly can you get us to these coordinates at emergency speed?" The chief engineer's voice crackled back. 4 days if we redline the fusion drives, Captain. But we'll be running hot the whole way." "Do it." Mitchell turned to her crew. "I know what our orders say, but I also know what Earth's history says about staying neutral in the face of genocide. We may be just one ship, but we're a human ship, and humanity has a way of surviving impossible odds." She activated the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the captain speaking. We've received a distress call from an advanced civilization under attack. We are going to answer that call. This isn't our war, but sometimes the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Battle stations in 30 minutes. Mitchell out." As the Horizon's engines roared to life, Elena noticed something in the data they received. Atmospheric readings from the Aetherian homeworld. "Captain," she said, a hint of wonder in her voice. Their gravity is only 0.8 Earth standard, and the Drachnids evolved in even lower gravity. Mitchell's smile turned predatory. So we're about to introduce them to some real Deathworlders. Alert medical to start everyone on high-gravity combat stims. We're going to teach these Drachnids why humans are classified as an apex species. The horizon accelerated into the darkness, its hull thrumming with power. In the ship's armory, railguns were charged, and kinetic penetrators were loaded. The Drachnids had never faced a species that evolved on a heavy-gravity world, never encountered beings whose very biology was forged in the crucible of Earth's punishing environment. They were about to learn why humans were considered the galaxy's ultimate survivors. The horizon might be just one ship, but it carried within it the indomitable spirit of humanity. A species that had clawed its way up from the mud of a death world to reach the stars. And now, that same species was about to remind the galaxy that sometimes the most dangerous predators were the ones who chose to be peaceful, until they couldn't anymore. The horizon burst into normal space at the edge of the Aetherian system, its sensors immediately painting a tactical picture that made Captain Mitchell's blood run cold. Dozens of Drachnid vessels hung in orbit around a crystalline world, their mining beams cutting deep into the planet's surface. The once pristine cities of the Aetherians glowed with an unnatural fire. Multiple Drachnid signatures detected, Lieutenant Park reported from Tactical. Their ships are massive, Captain. Smallest one is 3 times our size. Dr. Santos studied the readings from her station. The atmospheric degradation is worse than we thought. The Drachnids aren't just mining. They're literally stealing the air. At this rate, the Aetherians have less than a week before global atmospheric collapse. Mitchell nodded grimly. Then we don't have time to wait for reinforcements. Begin emergency broadcast on all frequencies. First contact protocol Alpha. The message was simple and direct. This is the UES horizon of the United Earth Fleet. You are committing genocide against a sentient species. Cease all hostile actions immediately or face consequences. The response came quickly. A harsh, clicking sound translated into human speech. Unknown vessel, this system is now property of the Drachnid Empire. Interfere and be destroyed. They're powering up weapons, Park reported. Energy signatures consistent with plasma cannons and particle beams. Mitchell allowed herself a small smile. Like most spacefaring races, the Drachnids relied on energy weapons and shields. Humanity had taken a different path, one born from their experiences on Earth. Status of our kinetic systems. Rail batteries charged and ready. Point defense grid online. All penetrators armed. Show me the largest concentration of their mining ships. The tactical display highlighted 3 massive vessels working in formation, their beams synchronized to strip away the planet's resources more efficiently. Mitchell studied their position, noting their predictable, stable orbits. They didn't expect any resistance. Why should they? They'd never faced a species that understood true violence. Target the central mining vessel, Mitchell ordered. Full power to the main driver. Load a tungsten penetrator. The Horizon's main weapon was simple in concept, an electromagnetically accelerated rod of dense metal, launched at a significant fraction of light speed. No energy shield could stop it. The physics simply didn't work that way. The energy of the impact would convert to heat, and at these velocities, heat meant destruction. Target locked. Park confirmed. They're still broadcasting warnings. Let them, Mitchell said softly. Fire. The Horizon shuddered as its main rail driver discharged. On the tactical display, a single point of light streaked across space. The Drachnid mining ship had no time to react. The penetrator struck just aft of its main drive section, the kinetic energy converting to plasma that carved through the vessel's length. Secondary explosions bloomed in its wake as the ship's own power systems overloaded. The effect on the Drachnid fleet was immediate. Ships began to break orbit, their formation dissolving into chaos. They had never encountered a weapon that could ignore their shields, never faced an enemy that could destroy their largest vessels with a single shot. Multiple weapons locks, Park reported. They're coordinating their fire. Launch fighters, Mitchell ordered. Show them why humanity builds small. The Horizon's launch bays opened, disgorging a swarm of single-pilot craft. Human fighters were tiny compared to alien vessels, considered too small to be effective by galactic standards. But they were piloted by humans who had evolved to handle high maneuvers, their reflexes honed by generations of combat training. The fighter squadron, led by Wing Commander Raj Patel, tore into the Drachnid formation. Their small size made them nearly impossible targets for the aliens' heavy weapons, while their own kinetic weapons found gaps in the massive ship's armor. Incoming transmission, Santos reported. It's from the surface. The tactical display filled with an image that took Mitchell's breath away. The Etherians were beautiful, crystalline beings of living light, their forms shifting and flowing like liquid starlight. The one addressing them spoke with a voice like wind through crystal. You fight for us. But why? You know nothing of our people. Mitchell stood straighter. We know you asked for help. On our world, we have a saying. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. We chose not to do nothing. The Aetherian's form pulsed with colors Mitchell's human eyes could barely process. But you risk your lives, your ship, all for strangers. That's what humans do, Mitchell replied. We help those who need it, and we're very, very good at surviving while we do it. As if to emphasize her point, another Drachnid vessel exploded, torn apart by concentrated fighter fire. The remaining alien ships were retreating, their formation broken, their confidence shattered by this encounter with humanity's particular brand of warfare. They're running, Park reported, a note of satisfaction in his voice. Let them, Mitchell said. Let them tell others what happened here. Let them spread the word that humanity protects those who can't protect themselves. She turned back to the Aetherian transmission. We'll stay until your atmosphere stabilizes. And then, if you're willing, we'd like to talk about an alliance, because the galaxy just got a little more interesting. The Aetherians' response was cut short by urgent signals from their sensors. The Drachnid ships weren't just retreating. They were calling for reinforcements. Mitchell's expression hardened as she processed the new tactical data. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. But that was fine. Humanity had never backed down from a fight, especially not one worth fighting. The Horizon might be just one ship, but it had already proven what humans could do. And soon, the Drachnids would learn that the galaxy's newest protectors had teeth, very, very sharp ones. Supreme Commander Vexthal of the Drachnid Empire stood before the tactical display, his compound eyes reflecting the destruction of his mining fleet. In his centuries of service, he had never witnessed such devastation. One primitive vessel, barely larger than a scout ship, had routed his entire resource extraction force. Show me the weapon's signature analysis again, he commanded, mandibles clicking in agitation. His science officer brought up the data, which only deepened his confusion. It's impossible, Supreme Commander. They're using projectile weapons, simple kinetic penetrators. No energy matrices, no plasma containment. Just metal. Vexthal's exoskeleton bristled with agitation. Primitives, using primitive weapons. And yet, the hologram showed again the moment when the human vessel's main weapon had fired. A simple rod of metal, accelerated to relativistic speeds, had torn through his flagship's supposedly impenetrable shields as if they didn't exist. Physics was physics. No energy shield could stop that much mass moving at that velocity. What do we know of these humans? His intelligence officer stepped forward, her carapace marked with the stripes of a veteran analyst. They are Deathworlders, Supreme Commander. Their homeworld has nearly twice our standard gravity. Their atmosphere is corrosive by our standards. They evolved as pursuit predators in an environment that should have killed them. Vexthal absorbed this information as reports continued to flood in. The human vessel, the Horizon, had taken up a defensive position around the Aetherian homeworld. Its small fighter craft maintained a constant patrol, their pilots performing maneuvers that would kill any Drachnid pilot through G-force alone. "They are helping the Aetherians rebuild their atmospheric processors," the science officer reported. "And they've sent out a signal." "Show me." The transmission was brief but clear. Coordinates for a region of space just outside the system, and a time. An invitation to parley, or a trap. They wish to talk. Vexthal's mandibles clicked in amusement. "After they destroy half my fleet, they wish to talk." "There's more, Supreme Commander. We've intercepted transmissions from their homeworld. They're sending ships, many ships." The tactical display updated, showing long-range sensor data. Dozens of human vessels were converting from civilian to military configuration as they moved to respond to the Horizon's call. Merchant ships becoming warships, research vessels arming themselves, passenger liners transforming into troop carriers. Their entire society, the intelligence officer observed, appears capable of rapid military mobilization. Every human ship, regardless of its primary function, is built with military capability in mind. Vexthal felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Fear, not of the weapons. Weapons could be countered. Not of the ships. Ships could be destroyed. No, he feared what these humans represented. A species that had evolved on a world that should have killed them, that had turned the very laws of physics into weapons, and that would throw aside peaceful pursuits to answer a stranger's call for help. On the bridge of the Horizon, Captain Mitchell reviewed the latest updates from Earth. The response to their distress call had been immediate and overwhelming. The Sol Defense Fleet was deploying in force, but more importantly, civilian vessels throughout human space were volunteering for combat duty. "The Drachnids are sending a response to our invitation," Dr. Santos reported. "They'll meet us at the designated coordinates." Mitchell nodded. "They're curious. We've shown them something they've never seen before, not just our technology, but our willingness to fight for others." The tactical display showed the Drachnid fleet regrouping at the edge of the system. They were deploying in a defensive formation, their ships clustered together for maximum shield coverage. It would have been an effective strategy against energy weapons. "They still don't understand," Lieutenant Park observed. "Those tight formations just make them better targets for kinetic weapons." "They'll learn," Mitchell said, "one way or another." The Horizon's sensors detected new energy signatures as more Drachnid reinforcements arrived. They were bringing their entire regional fleet, nearly 100 ships. Under normal circumstances, it would have been an overwhelming force. But these weren't normal circumstances. These were circumstances where humanity had decided to get involved. "Message from the Aetherian Council," Santos announced. "They've completed the emergency atmospheric repairs. Their people will survive." She paused, reading further. "They're offering us something in return. Their quantum engineering technology. They say we've proven ourselves worthy of it." Mitchell smiled. This was how humanity had always advanced, not through conquest, but by earning the trust and friendship of others. "Send them our thanks, and prepare for the meeting with the Drachnids. They need to understand that this isn't just about one ship anymore. This is about humanity showing the galaxy that there's a better way than conquest." As the Horizon moved to the designated coordinates, its sensors detected the first wave of human reinforcements entering the system. Leading them was the UES Titan, a converted mining vessel whose industrial-scale mass drivers had been repurposed into the largest kinetic weapons humanity had ever built. The Drachnids were about to learn another lesson about humans. We don't just fight harder than anyone expects. We bring friends. And we build very, very big guns. The negotiation zone hung in the void between the assembled fleets, a neutral space where the future of 3 species would be decided. Captain Mitchell stood on the Horizon's bridge, watching as the massive form of Supreme Commander Vexthal's flagship approached the designated coordinates. Behind it, the Drachnid fleet stretched out like a metal cloud. Behind the Horizon, Earth's rapidly assembled defense force held position, their kinetic weapons charged and ready. "They're hailing us," Dr. Santos reported. "The Supreme Commander requests permission to come aboard." Mitchell raised an eyebrow. "They're willing to board a human vessel. That's unexpected." "They've studied our atmospheric requirements," Santos explained. "They're bringing their own environmental suits. I think they want to see their opponents face to face." "Very well. Prepare the conference room and alert our Aetherian friends. They should be part of this discussion." The meeting that followed would be remembered in human history books for centuries to come. 3 species, 3 different evolutionary paths, 3 distinct approaches to survival, all gathered around a single table on a human warship. Vexthal was massive in his environmental suit, his exoskeleton adding to his already impressive bulk. The Aetherian representative, Chancellor Lyraine, seemed to float above her seat, her crystalline form pulsing with patterns of light that reflected her emotional state. Mitchell sat between them, acutely aware of the weight of the moment. "You have impressed us, human," Vexthal began, his translated voice carrying a mix of respect and wariness. "No species has ever dared to challenge the Drachnid Empire so directly." "We didn't challenge you for glory or territory," Mitchell replied. "We did it because it was right. Because the strong have a responsibility to protect the weak, not exploit them." The Drachnid's compound eyes shifted, focusing on the Aetherian Chancellor. "The weak? The Aetherians are one of the oldest species in known space. Their technology surpasses even ours in many ways, yet they refuse to defend themselves." "We chose peace," Lyraine's crystalline voice chimed. "Not because we are weak, but because we saw where the path of violence led. We chose to advance in other ways. And that choice should have been respected," Mitchell added. "Technology level doesn't determine right and wrong. Actions do." Vexthal's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sound that Mitchell's tactical training identified as agitation. "You speak of morality while threatening us with annihilation. Your kinetic weapons could destroy our entire fleet." "Yes," Mitchell agreed simply. "They could, just as your ships could have destroyed the Aetherians. The difference is in how we choose to use our power." The conversation that followed was complex, touching on issues of territorial rights, resource allocation, and the fundamental nature of civilization itself. The Drachnids had expanded through conquest because it was efficient. Why negotiate when you could simply take? The Aetherians had chosen total pacifism because they saw it as evolutionarily superior. Humanity, as ever, walked the middle path. "We propose a new arrangement," Mitchell finally said, laying out data tablets before both aliens. "The Aetherians have agreed to share their quantum engineering technology with both humans and Drachnids. In return, the Drachnid Empire will cease all hostile expansion and join a mutual defense pact. You would trust us with such technology." Vexthal's surprise was evident even through his translator. "After we proved ourselves conquerors." "We're trusting you to learn from this," Mitchell replied. "Humanity's history is full of conquerors who became builders, warriors who became peacekeepers. Change is possible. Growth is possible." The negotiations continued for hours, delving into technical specifications, treaty terms, and enforcement mechanisms. Throughout it all, Mitchell couldn't help but notice how the Drachnid commander's posture gradually shifted from defensive to contemplative. "There is one thing I don't understand," Vexthal said as they approached a final agreement. "Your ships, they're converted civilian vessels. You had no standing fleet in this region, yet you committed everything to defend aliens you'd never met. Why?" Mitchell smiled. "Because that's what makes us human. We look at the galaxy and see not resources to be taken, but connections to be made. Not battles to be won, but people to be helped. Yes, we're good at fighting. We had to be, to survive Earth. But we choose to use that strength to protect, not destroy." As the meeting concluded and the various representatives prepared to return to their ships, Chancellor Lyraine approached Mitchell privately. "You fought for us. The Aetherian said, her form shimmering with complex emotions. But more importantly, you found a way to make peace. Perhaps there is hope for all of us. Mitchell watched as the aliens departed, thinking about the price of the peace they'd brokered. The human fleet had been prepared for war, ready to fight to protect the innocent. Instead, they'd achieved something far more valuable: the beginning of understanding between three very different species. The horizon sensors showed the Drachnid fleet beginning to withdraw, honor-bound by their agreement. The Aetherian world below was already showing signs of recovery, its atmosphere stabilizing under the combined efforts of human and Aetherian technology. "Send word to Earth," Mitchell ordered. "Tell them we're going to need diplomats. And engineers. And teachers." She smiled. "The hard part isn't winning the fight. It's building what comes after." As the messages were sent, Mitchell looked out at the stars, knowing that the galaxy had changed. Humanity had revealed itself not just as warriors, but as mediators. Not just as protectors, but as bridge builders. They had shown that sometimes the greatest strength lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to find another way. The price of mercy, it turned out, was simply the courage to offer it. 5 years after the Aetherian crisis, the UES Horizon once again approached the crystalline world, but this time as part of a very different mission. Captain Mitchell, now Admiral Mitchell, stood on her bridge watching the transformed system come into view. Where once there had been mining ships tearing at the planet's atmosphere, now there were construction platforms building the galaxy's first joint species research station. "Quite a change," Dr. Santos remarked, standing beside her old friend. The scientist had refused numerous prestigious positions on Earth, choosing to remain with the ship that had changed galactic history. "Hard to believe it all started with one distress call," Mitchell replied, watching as ships from all three species moved through the system in carefully coordinated patterns. Human vessels, their robust designs speaking of their Deathworld origins, flew alongside the crystalline ships of the Aetherians and the newly redesigned vessels of the Drachnid Empire. The main viewing screen activated, showing a familiar face, or rather, a familiar set of compound eyes and mandibles. Supreme Commander Vexthal, now serving as the Drachnid ambassador to the Tripartite Alliance, greeted them warmly. "Admiral Mitchell, your timing is perfect. The final components of the quantum drive are ready for installation." The project they were discussing represented something unprecedented, a fusion of Aetherian quantum engineering, Drachnid power systems, and human materials science. It promised to revolutionize space travel, but its very existence represented something far more important: cooperation between former enemies. "The latest batch of human students has adapted well to our gravity," a crystalline voice chimed in as Chancellor Lyrain joined the transmission. "Their insights into practical applications of quantum theory are unexpected, refreshing." Mitchell smiled at that. Humanity's tendency to find unconventional solutions had proven to be one of their greatest contributions to the Alliance. Where the Aetherians saw pure theory and the Drachnids saw military applications, humans had a knack for finding practical, civilian uses for advanced technology. "The exchange program is expanding," Mitchell reported. "We've got Drachnid engineering students on Earth now, studying our kinetic weapons technology. For defensive purposes only, of course. And the first human Aetherian medical research team has made breakthroughs in regenerative medicine. But not everything was perfect." As they spoke, long-range sensors detected a patrol of Alliance ships dealing with pirates at the edge of their space. Some species had seen the new cooperation between humans, Aetherians, and Drachnids as a threat. Others had tried to take advantage of the Drachnid Empire's shift away from military expansion. "The consortium is pressing at our borders again," Vexthal reported, his tone serious. "They believe we've grown weak because we chose peace." "Let them think that," Mitchell replied. "They don't understand that true strength comes from standing together, not standing alone." The meeting continued, discussing the various challenges and opportunities facing their alliance. Throughout it all, Mitchell couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed. The Drachnids, once feared conquerors, were now respected innovators in defensive technology. The Etherians had maintained their peaceful philosophy while learning to stand up for themselves and humanity. "We've received another distress call," Santos reported after the transmission ended. "A young species, just achieving spaceflight. They're under attack from resource raiders." Mitchell nodded, already knowing what would happen next. "Send word to the Alliance. Let's show these raiders what happens when you threaten the innocent in our space." Within hours, a joint task force was assembled. Human ships provided the main combat power, their kinetic weapons still unmatched in direct combat. Drachnid vessels added their expertise in electronic warfare, their former conquest strategies now turned to defense. And Etherian ships brought their advanced sensors and medical facilities, ready to help survivors. As the Horizon moved into formation with its allies, Mitchell reflected on the true legacy of what had begun 5 years ago. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, not as conquerors or victims, but as protectors. They had shown that being strong didn't mean you had to be cruel, that being advanced didn't mean you had to be passive, and that being different didn't mean you had to be alone. "You know," Santos said quietly, "when we first received that distress call, I never imagined it would lead to all this." Mitchell watched as the combined fleet prepared for transit, each species contributing its unique strengths to their shared purpose. "That's the thing about humanity, Doctor. We never just solve the problem in front of us. We always find a way to build something better." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving behind a system that stood as testament to what could be achieved when different species chose to work together. The legacy of the Deathworlders, it turned out, wasn't their ability to fight. It was their ability to show the galaxy a better way forward. As they traveled to answer another call for help, Mitchell thought about all the species yet to be discovered, all the challenges yet to be faced. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not by conquering or submitting, but by standing up for what was right and offering a hand in friendship to those who would take it. The Deathworlders had become the peacekeepers, the bridge builders, the protectors, and the galaxy was better for it.